Sorry guys, took me a minute. I couldn't get it to start. So this is episode 11 of the Intersection Quilt Project. Let me show you kind of where we are. Oh, let's see if we can actually bring our camera out a little bit. It's really, really full. Let's see. We need a little bit more room, right? We need to be able to see what we're doing. What do you think? So far, we've got a lot on there. Some really pretty areas. Some baubles, don't point those out. Nobody else is allowed to know. If they want to look longer, they can figure it out for themselves. So we did put a little fill in here. This is very similar to the one that we have here. That way we can kind of bring those designs into an adjacent space so that they kind of have that same look. And let me show you a couple other things I did since we last met. I went ahead and I filled in a piece right here that connects this and makes this go underneath. So much of our designing is about that overlapping and underlapping design. And so I wanted to bring this design over here a little bit because this was a really large fill space. I also went ahead and I put in this cute sort of center motif, and then I just arced around that to fill this in and give this the drama. This piece is sort of the center position of all of this right here. So I felt like it needed its own strong motif, and then this really becomes the focal point, and then your eye will drift over to this space as we go. Okay, so this part was filled in since we last met. I've added a few of these pieces, and let me just talk about this piece really quick. I'm going to just pull the quilt forward, and so we've got this space right here. It kind of floats around. It has some open areas, and now what I decided is as we move forward in the quilt, I've continued this line, this space right here. I actually lined it up, and I continued it all the way here on this back side. These spaces right here are going to have that same detail. So it's going to come from behind the circle and underneath this square, and it's going to have that same square in the middle with that fill that goes around, and it'll connect into two spaces right here. So nothing here, and even though this has a line, all of this will be open right here. This space, number one, it was very open. So it would have taken a lot more fill, which we could have done, but I decided that if you look at it, look how round it is. It's got all of this round detail, and it's got this big circle and this big circle right here with a lot of little circles inside of it. So there was a lot of curvy stuff going on right here. I felt like I could connect the design visually with the other side, and then by putting it on this side, we've reduced the space for our fill, and we've also complemented that design, and we've continued our over-under process to bring that out a little bit more here. So it's going to create that visual impact where somebody will look at the other side, and then their eye is going to come to this area, and it's going to go ahead and continue that design. So those were the design decisions that I've made so far. Let me turn the quilt a little bit. The very first microfill that I want to do is going to be right in this space. Right along the feather, it's very narrow right there. Too narrow to really put any design that has a strong visual impact. So what that tells me is I'm not going to work hard to put a visual impact in there. So right in this area, right in this little narrow spot right here, I'm going to just do a very simple meander fill. And I'm going to work it around here and maybe a little bit in here. And then maybe here we'll fill in with a little something that is more visually impactful because it's a little bit bigger. And then as we work over to here, we'll swoop back into just that meander fill all the way to this point. This section right here is closed. If we fill it in, we'll be able to go from this edge right here all the way over to this corner right here, and there's no other connection. So I think 2 designs is reasonable to put in there. We don't need a lot of designs. We just want to change the loft, right? The goal right now is to really push that down so that the feather is what stands out. Let's talk about needles before we get started. And thread, too. I have a very fine thread in my machine right now, super fine. Let's bring our camera a little closer again. I'm trying a new camera setup. I'm not sure if I like it, but what I want is for it not to vibrate. So I'm hoping that this will give you a little better view without any vibration. So you guys let me know what you think. Right now, I've put up a few different needles right here. So I want to show you. These are all top stitch, and you'll see this is 100, 90, then we've got the 80, and we've got a 70. This is very, very small. This is measuring the eye of the needle. So let's take this big one out, this giant one right here. He's huge. Right? Look how big that eye is. And the groove that is right there on there is very big. Look how big that is. Why is it so big? What we want is the thread to ride in that groove completely. Every time you take a stitch, we want that thread to be shielded and protected by the needle. Look at this one. Let's see if we can even see. Look how tiny that is. It's so small, right? And there's my groove. You can really see how shallow that is. And this is just this tiny little eye right there. Now it's a long eye. It's got plenty of room. But the reason it's so much smaller is you would be using a much finer thread. So let's pull out, I'm just going to cut off a little piece of this thread real quick. And I've got it already threaded up. You can see this is my top thread that I've got in my hand. If I pull on it, it doesn't just come towards me really fast. It actually has some tension, as fine as it is. This is 100 weight. This is kimono silk. This is by Superior Threads. And you can see how fine that is. Really just next to my skin, really fine. And then let's cut a little piece of our 40 weight, which is what we've quilted with so far with this piece. So what I don't want is I don't want to use a big bulky thread and some really, really tiny, tiny designs. Okay, so this is the 40 weight, the pink, and the white is 100 weight silk. Silk is surprisingly strong. You wouldn't think that it would be because it's so fine, but it's pretty durable. It's it's a natural fiber. And let me show you something else. I'm just going to kind of like lay them on there. The drape on the silk, mine's a little curly because it's been on the spool. So I've got it on a long lead before it hits the machine. It's on a top-mounted spool holder. So it's got some room to relax before it goes into the needle. But it drapes really nicely. Look how it just kind of lays over my finger. Sometimes some threads are a little bit more wiry. They don't just lay down over you. This is isocord. This is a pretty nice drape, but sometimes some threads may not be as flexible as that. And that's just something that you can note. It's not going to conform to the fabric as well if the thread is a little wiry. So silk has a really nice drape to it, and I really like that. It is more expensive than other threads, but 100 weight spool is going to last a really long time because it's so fine, you get a lot more. So that's something to think about as well. So I'm all threaded up already. I do have my ruler foot on there, as I normally do. Let's go ahead and we'll get set up. Now, I'm using white thread. It's called white rice is the actual color of it, to match my white fabric because I don't want that thread to really show. Where do I find 100 weight silk? Many stores carry it. Many quilt stores carry it. My local store carries it. You can also order many different colors from Superior Thread. They have a whole bunch. I think also Sulky makes a a silk thread, and I know YLI makes a silk thread also. So depending on who is your brand, you'll be able to find lots of different choices. Just buy a neutral spool, just buy one, try it out, see how you like it. Right now I've got this 70 needle in here because that thread is much finer. So I would recommend at least an 80 or a 70 if you're using that. So that'll help you make some decisions about what you're going to do. There's also 80 weight deco bob is really great. That is poly, so it's less expensive, and that thread works really, really well. Let's see if I have it. I have a sample of it. This is Invisafill. This is a Wonderfill product, and this one is 100 weight. So again, very fine, but this is polyester, right? And then I have deco bob, which is 80 weight by Wonderfill. And that one's a little bit more cottonized, the texture of it. So that could be something that you could use also. So let's see what our spool looks like. Here's the Superior Threads. This is kind of what it looks like. This is just the regular spool, but the luster is really pretty. It's gorgeous. You know, it's got some good shine. So that'll help, you know, with light hitting the quilt. Okay, enough talking, let's quilt. All right. So guess what? I warmed up this morning and I've tested all of my thread tension, and hopefully it's all going to work out well. So let's start over here right where this connects right there. Can you guys see that? Because the thread is white, I really do want to let you get in a little bit close because it's not going to be very easy to see the detail based on the color. You're going to have to really kind of see it just based on that texture and closeness. So let's kind of loosen this up so we can get you in. I think that's going to be better. All right. Alrighty. Let's make sure we're all tight. It's having trouble focusing there. There we go. Okay, here we go. So always pick up our bobbin thread just like we always do. One of the cool things about using this color is I can actually stitch right next to wherever that pink thread is, and nobody will be able to tell. Let's see if I got it. All right, so we'll tack it off a little bit. That is just really not focusing as much as I want it to. We'll have to come out just a little bit. It's just too close. It doesn't like that. So with this, if you want to do microfill and you prefer to use a regular Freemotion foot, then you totally should do that. This does not offer as much visibility when you're doing really small fills because this foot is kind of big. So that's just something for you to think about. For me, I like to switch back and forth, so I rarely take my ruler foot off. Mary, I am using the same thread in the top and the bobbin. I'm using this white rice color 100 weight silk thread. Okay, right as we start out, I've got my bobbin pulled up and I want to put some tacking stitches because we're not going to be coming back to this space. So I'm just going to right along the edge right here, just put a few stitches in. Now I'm going to start with this little meander right here, and I want to go a little bit fast. What I want you to key in on is that I'm just using my fingertips to move. Do I care if the line crosses over? I don't really want it to, but I don't care. It is so small, nobody is going to get in there and check, okay? This is such a tiny area. If they are, just give them a little pat on the head and say, okay, honey, make your own quilt. Okay, so when we go, we want a little bit of speed because if we don't have some speed, then it doesn't make a smooth curve. So we're just going to try to use our fingertips and work our way out of this little divot right here because it's very narrow right here. And I'm going to stop. My quilt is falling off of my table, so I'm going to bring it back up here so it will behave. And then again, ramp up to speed pretty quickly, okay? So I'm trying to get right next to that stitch line. The goal is we're trying to punch that thread down. So if I'm not right next to that echo of the feather, then it may not punch it down. Kind of get right in close to that seam line right there, right all the way into those little divots. where it bumps down. Okay, so let's just show you right now. See if you can see that difference in texture of what's happening. Okay, so we are bringing this and we're pushing it down, and it's not really color. I could come back in. I could even make it tighter if I wanted to. I don't need to. Another thing that we'll show you is how you can walk right back along this stitch line right here with this thread and really get right next to that area. You may have noticed throughout our process that if we double stitch, it really punches this line down and differentiates between areas that are up and areas that are down. So with this thread being able to be hidden so easily, I could literally start from where I'm at. Let's go ahead and do it instead of talk about it. Okay, I'm just gonna hold this, give me some control. I'm trying to look over the camera, so hopefully you'll forgive me if I bobble. But I'm just gonna go right along the pink. And it's free motion, so it may be wobbly. I don't care. Get these threads out of there. So I am going a little slower here because I want control. Again, this is that topic we were just talking about, making sure that we punch down all the way to that edge right there. Because this thread hides so well, we can come right next to this pink. And by doing that, I've just created a little section. I've only worked a little ways, and then this is going to bring me right back to where I left off. And pretty much at this point, we're ready now to go ahead and do the next. And can you see that edge now? It really changes that. It's really making sure that this right against this outline is all recessed with that extra stitching. So let's turn it a little bit so you can see. Can you really see that shadow and that texture right there that we're getting now? Okay, so let's go ahead. We've got to come around this corner, and then once it opens up, we can add that other one. But again, we still want to fill with that microfill pretty much even out to right here. I don't want to try to put, maybe I can put one little thing in there, but I won't try to get something really detailed because it's just too much work, too much trouble. So let's get us right out to where we open back up. And here we'll just continue. Now again, little speed when you are working on that microfill, okay? We need to have some speed because otherwise it's just gonna look really choppy. So I'm just using my fingertips. You can see my thumb right here. I'm just kind of going like this. The movement is very small, and we really need the whole quilt to come with us. So that's probably the hardest part, is making sure it all comes with you. Sometimes, I don't know if you can see just now, as I was sewing, the quilt kind of released down here and it just went like this. It kind of moved quickly. So that's the important piece. Get in close to your work and make sure that it's up on that flat surface, because what you don't want is all of a sudden it releases from the edge where it's kind of trapped, and then all of a sudden it goes really fast. So I hate that. That happens to me all the time. So I'm just kind of trying to do a little wiggle, and I'm going to come back and finish right here. I left a little gap. So you kind of go out on one side, and then you're just going to come back on the other side. So let's just maybe put a little swirly in here because we can. And then I'll just fill around him. Because he's a little bit more open, that'll just put a little visual detail in there. And here I can go right along the seam if I'm trapped. That's another thing that I like about this thread, because it is so easy to hide. If you get trapped, like I couldn't kind of get out of there because it was so narrow and I had filled everything in, I just sneaked right along the edge right there. Now, this is where we left off right here. I can actually see the stitching to about right there. So let's go ahead and we'll just finish putting that detail in there. And then that way we don't have to come back as much. So using my fingers. So just very light movement. I'm barely moving my arm. I want a lot of control, so I'm just using my fingers just a little bit. So how do we get to the other side, right? Oh, we'll just stitch across. Are you kidding me? Nobody's going to be able to tell, right? So then we'll go ahead and we'll finish the outside and get us back to where we started. Okay, I'll stop. I'm going to adjust, pull up the quilt, because make sure it's in my lap. Try to ramp up to speed quickly so you don't get any long stitches, right? Right on the inside of that pink. And I'm right there. So let's see what we have so far. Do you feel like you can tell the difference now for that area? Do you feel like that makes something different, something better? I really like that texturing, and I think it is a lot of work. I think a lot of people don't do it. But, you know, if you wanted to, you could always add it to your quilt, and you don't have to put a big amount of it. Like we're doing a lot with this quilt because this is educational. But if you just wanted to do it in just one or two little areas, then that's all you need to do. You don't have to do it everywhere. And like, for example, right here, I don't really want to do it right here because I want this to really stay. But what we could do in this area is do like 1/8 inch. So what that would do is make this pink right here push down a little bit, and it would make the flatness wider. So I think we'll do just that also right here, just to give you that idea. We're about to open up into this wider space. So the one thing that I thought we would do is change it up a little bit and give it some more visibility here, because this is so small. They're not really going to see a lot of detail, but in here they will. So we want to put something maybe a little bit more pretty, a little bit more visible. So what I'm going to try is, this is a little coin type of thing. And it is kind of messy here. This is my thread test. But I love this design because it can go every direction, and you can change it and you can snake around it. And it's still small. This is my finger. It's about the arc of a fingernail. So let's show you that. We need to kind of get out of this right here, and we'll start putting that fill in here. In order to make the fills look integrated, I think it's important that we kind of mix them now. We can't have all of a sudden we stop and then we're just going to do that other one. So what we'll do is we'll start doing our little arc right here. And I got to fill in this side, so I'm going to come over here. And we'll come across to get the next one. So I had to fill in that little gap. Now, we need to kind of go this way. So right now my arc was like this direction, as if it was coming this way. Right where I'm at now is I'm just going to start making the arc go the other way, like this. And then I'm going to start filling it in. So we come back over to this side and get that side filled in. And if I need to, I can travel right there. Okay, we're going this way, but now we have to fill in this side. So now let's start putting that little arc coming over this way a little bit more. And we'll come back this way. And we'll just fill in that space and come back out. Okay. So let's put a little bit of this fill in now, that little meander, because we want them to look like they blend. We don't want them to look like an afterthought. So we'll fill in right over here to the corner. Okay, and then let's start another one. Coming up over the top a few times. The key with this one is trying to come back on yourself, making sure that you touch a little bit wherever you left off. So let's go this way a little bit, and then we'll go back and fill that other spot in. So we're going to start turning the corner and going back the other way. So I'm gradually starting to make this curve a little bit and fill on the other side. Okay, make this come a little bit, and now we'll fill that in. Okay, we've got to come down to this little corner right here. Fill him in. And a little bit of fill right there, and then just come back out, and we'll just start another one right here. So these can come back on themselves, it's no big deal. And this is the last one. Okay, so this little space now, it's all filled in with these little curly arcs, and we need to kind of come back over here and close all of our space. So I think I'll come this way and come down, and then echo over here and come back on this way. There's no necessarily good way. Maybe we'll just continue filling this side, and then we'll just come back this way. I think that's what we'll do. All right, so I'm going to put a little dot here, a little visual marker, so I know where I left off. Right about there. That's where my little echo back starts, and that way I know where I have to come and clean up as I go. Right to the corner, right here. Looking inside the opening and then just following along. Okay, now I'm already out in that new section, so let's turn it a little bit. Let's see, can you guys see the difference in that little detail right there? That's our little wavy worm. I call him a worm. So that's what we just did right there in that section. Okay, and now let's put some little microfill, and then I think we'll do some more worms. So we'll just a little bit of the meander, and then we'll go back into another one. And this is how we can make those two pieces look like they're creating their own little pattern. Ooh, my quilt is not coming with me. Again, ramp up to speed so you can get that in there. And we'll just come around and we'll fill up that little space right there. And as small as this is, if you ever forget a little area, you can just come back in and fill it up some more. Nobody will be able to tell. They'll never know. So right in this little spot right here, and then let's start our next one. Fill that in, and I'll actually just come back over here and get that next one. Come right around there. Now, this is microfill time right here. All this right here is way too tiny to do anything else, so we're just going to microfill it. And we'll just come right in there and just fill that in. Okay, and then this is the last little bit. We only have a little bit, and then we're just going to microfill over here because this can't really take any design. So let's go ahead and we'll finish right up close to the feather with the microfill, and then we'll do our little worm right in there. So worm. So right here, and we're going to curve back this way and try to come back in here with some little wormies to get that last part filled. And then we'll go around and we'll just put the microfill in there. So small now, I need more control, so I'm slowing down. Can you tell? I got to come all the way to this last little section and then we'll be done. Okay, so let's go ahead and we can do that fill right along the edges. So let me show you where we're at. I'll turn it a little bit. We've come quite a distance from where we started, right? So this is filled to a certain spot. Let's see if I can find it. To about right there, right? So we need to come back all this way and punch all of that down. So we'll go ahead and do that real quick. It doesn't take very long to do this part, I think. Get my quilt up on the table. Oh, the light's in my way too. If you need to stop and get your hand kind of recentered, that's always a good thing. I try not to adjust my hand too much on the fly. I think it's too hard. All right, let's see where we're at. We're getting close. So I think we end up right over here. We've got to come back a little bit further to finish this up. That little closure detail right there, I really like it because it really changes that texture. Okay, so at this point, this is where we left off. So we can either tie this off or we can just snake over to the other side. So on the other side, we have to go back the other way. I think we have to go back all the other way. So let's just go ahead and do that. We'll just go the other direction. A little extra thread won't matter. Nobody will see it. So I'm right next to the edge of that pink. And then when we get up here, we'll just cross over because this already has some of that extra detail right there. So we'll just snake over. Right there, I think is a good spot. So this side's already done. So now we can just go on the other side and we'll be finished with this entire section. So far this has only taken maybe what, about 10 or 15 minutes to get that done. And that's with a lot of talking. So if I was just sitting here concentrating, I would be able to get this done pretty quickly. I want to stay on the outside of the pink line because I don't want to compromise any of this part that is the lofty part that we've intentionally put in there. Especially right here, I can tell that this area is a little light on quilting right up against the edge. So I just filled it in a little bit. Just keeping that machine going very rhythmically, getting right into that corner. And then we're almost done. And here I'll just put a little bit of micro tacking just to make sure that we're all secure. All right, so let's hop over. Let's do this part right here too. I think the micro tacking on this would be really, really important to have this closed. We can do a meander right here, or we can do some kind of straight lines. Do you guys have a preference? I'll go ahead and I'll just pop this up. So for me, these microfills, they don't really stand on their own. They're not really designed to be the star, so they don't have to be something that's just so perfect, and they don't have to have a lot of visual impact. As long as they do their job of compression, that's really what I want. And I think this area of the quilt will show much better if we outline it and we put that little meander in there. So this area is pretty small. Chances are good that we would come right back to the start. So we'll go ahead and tie it off just by overstitching. So I'm just going to outline it. There's that overstitching. So you saw I kind of filled up one side of the space, and then as I'm working back down to the bottom, I'm filling up the other side. So what do you think? Just that little bit right there, look at how much difference that makes. Really makes this part just have that little bit of a shadow right there, so it has more jump out at you. I love that. All right, let's go ahead and cut that. Then we'll do one more area. Today's, I guess, a little bit longer because really we're going to finish today. We're done with this design. All right. So what do you think? So we've got this beautiful fill on here. I love it. It's really giving us that shadow right there along the feather. And now let's bring our little worm up closer. There. Isn't he cute? So he can just go any direction. He can wiggle any which way he wants to. Ooh, looks like we need some more quilting right there, huh? No problem. We'll just stick that in there later. So here's our little meander for this little part right there. He's a little more textured right there. So again, we can put some more. But notice that even up close, it doesn't matter if these cross over. You are not going to see that. I'm stitching right next to the pink. It is possible that I might stitch over it, but by accident. My goal is to stitch right on this side of the pink, not actually on top of it. What we're doing is that punches the very edge right here. It makes sure that the difference between these two is really, really strong. Plus, it actually widens out the stitch line a little bit. Not with pink, but because we have two threads stitching next to each other, it makes this appear a little thicker and a little bit denser, so it does really change the texture between the two areas. So, but that's a good question. Very good question. Okay, let's see where else our area was. We had another one. Okay, let's work on this one right here. Now, because we're moving to another area, but we really, really want to create unity for all areas of the quilt. Let's take one of the designs that we did before, and then we're going to match it up with another design so that we can add a little more variety. So let's take our worm. This is a little bit wider. There's only a little bit of area where there's not enough space for a worm, and I think I can fudge it in there a little bit. So we're going to put our worm in here, but we're going to put something maybe a little bit more visibly impactful in this, because this is a lot bigger. So we'll do worm kind of from the edges here and worm here, and then we'll put in some fill. And again, we're going to work on blending them and making sure that we can put a mixture of them to make them work. So what we'll do is the worm right down here on the end, getting us all the way to the end here. Let's see, my thread is trapped. It's not moving very good. There we go. Okay. All right, let's pick up our thread and we'll tack it off right here in the end. And we can travel however we want with this thread. Again, it's so easy because it's very, very fine and we can get right up next to the edge. So I'm right in the corner right there. And I'm going to just do a few of those tacking stitches, moving ever so slightly right here. And then I'm going to start my worm, very tiny. Okay, I'm going to adjust my quilt now. He's hanging off. Oh, get back on there. And then we'll start making our worm change directions a little bit because we want some fun. We want him to maybe move around a little bit. So we'll go this way, around the corner. And then let's kind of bring him back in to fill up that gap. There's a little gap right here. So we'll kind of echo out. A little bit more speed. And then we'll make him come on the back side now. It just kind of keeps it varied up a little bit so it's not looking like just one straight line. So let's make this one kind of go a little bit halfway and come into this corner. And then he's a little bit offset. And then we'll straighten him out a little bit. So I'm going to fill this way, so we're going to kind of split this space a little bit. So he's going to come in to this little divot right here and fill it up. And then we'll kind of work our way to get him back onto the other side. Okay, and we're finally at the place where it's starting to open up now. So let's finish this part. And we're right at the end. So here's what we've done so far. And you can see he's definitely kind of got the wormy look. Okay, so he's just arcing over and they change directions and they move around. And now we have a bigger open space. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use a design that we've used already a few times. And it's the small circles, and then it's also going to mix with the little swirly. And it's a nice shape to use with this one. So we're going to put circles in circles because we want this to be kind of dense. If the circles are really tiny, they won't have any fill. If they're a little bit bigger and they're too open, that's when I'm going to put the little fill in there. So, a little circle, another one, and we'll put a little fill in this one. And let's make some real tiny ones right here. Little echo right there. Let's put a little fill in that one. Whew, circles are hard. They make me tired. My eyeballs are crossing. All right, so let's get up to this one. Find the edges with the white thread. It's a little hard to see where you're going. So let's start filling this side over here. put a little swirl in that one. A little partial to get up next to the edge. And a little fill in that one. Some little circles right here, very small. And one right down there to get in there. And a little bit bigger one now, with a little fill. And some smaller ones. Okay, we're kind of coming to the end, so we want to get to that place where we can kind of come back to that worm. So we'll put a little one in here, and then here's our worm. Just arc it in, and we'll go fill up this corner first, up here. And let's scoop this out of the way. So we're going to arc actually towards the corner right there. And then here, we'll just come back on this arc and we'll go this way. So I think that one of the things that I have done in the past that is kind of messes up your little worm is that you try to arc all the way back to wherever. You don't have to, just make him the same size. That's really the key. And then he can just fit wherever. So I'm going to just come in and we're going to start filling this space right here. We'll get this filled in a little bit because he's so tiny. And then we're going to start doing our echo. Try to be right on the inside of that pink and really punch it down right next to the pink. What that does is it really makes this loft step up and be very strong. So we just want to go right on the inside. We're not trying to sew on the pink because we don't want to diminish the color of the pink at all if we can't. I mean, if we can avoid it, we don't want to do anything to take away the sharp color because that's what is the defining part of that design right there. Also, as we're going along, if we see any areas that are not filled in or we have a gap that we need to take care of, now's the time to inspect that because you're already traveling along the length there. So we're right here. I'm going to put a little something in there because he needs something right there. So then we'll go ahead and close out those stitches right there. Right along the pink. Notice how it's a little bit easier to control now that I went a little faster. I think sometimes we are afraid to go fast, but I think the needle drags a bit if we go too slowly. So having a little bit of speed when you're trying to be really in control can be a little bit helpful. You want to play with that and see what's working best for you. So right here in the divot, make sure that's all punched down all the way to that little V. All right, little tacking, and we'll get him all done. It's really hard to see where that thread is, isn't it? I'll bring it up a little closer. I'm actually working very close to the project itself to make sure that I can see everything. That thread is pretty fine, but it's totally worth it. So let's see if you can see it now. Right, so we have our little circles and circles, little baby circles, then they kind of wiggle until they get to the worm, right? And then this is the other side. So here's the little worm or coin on this side, on this edge, right? And I'm sure I've crossed over and I'm sure there's messy something in there. I don't care. It looks awesome. When you just look straight down at it, let's see if I can just show you. Like if you were just looking right down, right? It does change that texture. It really makes this part stand apart. And if we put a little, even just a little shadow on it like that, right? You can really see how that makes a big difference. So we've only done a few of them. We're going to go ahead, we'll continue filling in the other ones. The one, I think I'll show you one last one. If we want to do something where we have just some fill on the outside, we can do something right down here that's a little bit more linear. If we're free motioning, I don't really like to do something that is so linear that it has to be straight, because I just can't do it. I'll be honest with you. So what we can do is we can change it up so that it doesn't have to be that way. Let's just start out here in the boundary, and I'm actually going to tack the edge right here. Oh, come on. We'll just tack the edge. I don't want this to be coming up while I'm stitching, so I'm just going to put a little tacking in there right along the edge of this feather so that the fabric will stay down. It's in the seam allowance, so it won't matter. Here, let's make sure it stays down. I'm just putting a little tension on it right there so that it won't buckle like it is going to right there, because there's more fabric. So right here, I'll just give this a little tug to tighten that up so he can lay down flat. Okay, good. There we go. All right, so let's get our quilt configured. He's quilted up very heavily now, so he doesn't want to move very flexibly, which is really kind of irritating. So let's fill in this area, and we'll do some mixture of the ones that we've already done, and then as we go across here, we're going to do some straight lines as we come across. Let's adjust the camera real quick so you can see where we're going. And then that'll be it. Then we'll be done. And I'm just going to use those same fills that we've done to fill in all of the space. And that way I can make sure that there is some unity between the design. So right here, let's just put those wiggles in. And you can really see here, we're going to change directions. We're going to go this way. And we're going to really get up close to the feather with this. So notice how we're really changing. We went 360, then we went 180. So touch the arc, and then come back out. And I can just come this way a little bit. Having those fun changes of directions, I think, is what kind of makes this look, you know, more organic, more fits into the space a little bit. So we're going to come in and we're going to fill that gap that we created, because this way he's going the opposite direction, which I love. And then when we get over to the edge, we'll just snake out and we'll just keep going. So we do want to fill in this space, so we'll just put the meander right there. I'm using my thumb to pull the fabric around a little bit right here, so I can just get in there without a lot of movement. And I want to be on the outside over here, so I don't want to echo on the inside here. I want to be on the outside. So when we come back over, we'll come in this way, right to the corner, and then I'm back where I need to be. And let's see where we're at. So I think we'll do a little bit more of our little coin or our little wiggle, and we'll make him go different directions. We don't want it to be super regular. We want it to go in different ways. So we'll come over and we'll finish this area now. Travel. And then start wiggling back. Okay, I'm going to have to adjust everybody. So just pick one direction here. We'll come in this way and we'll fill this side. Stuck on something here. It's not going the way I want him to go. Is it our thread? Oh, it's our thread, darn it. I don't know what that was. Something. It's kind of bumped up on something. Okay, so I'm going to put my thread down and I'm actually going to pull back on my top thread a little bit to make sure that he won't have a loop right there. So we'll just finish this part right here, fill this in. This is actually a really convenient shape because it's going to basically fill right into this existing shape right there. And then we'll just come back out right along that pink until we are back out in this open edge right here. One thing I like about that is that that makes him go two different directions, which is very cool. Right to the edge, and then right here we'll just put one opposite way, and then I'm going to actually just travel along an existing stitch line, which is right there, and come back on the other side. So we'll go this way, and again this is where we now are going this opposite direction, which I think is great. It's going to make our little coins go so many different ways so they don't look like they're all in a straight line. And we'll fill up this side, and then this guy will come out and he'll fill this way. Okay, so we're pretty much done. We've got all of our fills in there, so let's start working maybe this straight line across the bottom of the feather here. Let's do, we'll kind of come out here, and we're just going to start doing something linear, a little bit more linear. Make them a little wiggly, because I don't want them to be too straight, because I don't want to have to work that hard. Make sure that when you come up, you're trying to get close to the edge. I'll show you what happened. Right here, see how I'm not? I'm going to end up having to fill that in later, or that will be very visible. So I'm going to try to get a little closer as I'm coming up with this next one. Wiggling, but getting a little closer. So the quilt was falling off the back, and it was trapping him, so I couldn't pull him. So they're kind of linear, but they are waffly. I don't want them to be too perfect because I don't want to have somebody look at them and say, oh, they're not perfect. I'm like, yep, they're not perfect. That's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. And if you wanted to make them even more wavier than this, you can. Like S curves and then just kind of echo back, and it's totally fine. It's up to you. Try to get right up to the pink. So you're looking inside that opening, making sure that you can see right up to that pink. And then here, let's just start making some little circles because we can. That'll help with that unity thing. Okay, and then we'll start coming back with those little wavy things again. Okay. Okay, I think we'll put some more circles in, so once we get up here, let's start working on some little circles. fill that one in double. Make a little bigger one. Put this echo on this side. Some little ones. Okay, and a little one right there. Oh, quilt's getting heavy. I gotta adjust it. Make sure that it can come with me. So we're gonna have to fill it this way with those little wavy lines, because otherwise we won't be able to get all the way down to the bottom. Now these are a lot longer, so it is important that you have a little speed, because speed is gonna actually help you be a little straighter if you want that. Again, if you don't want that, just be wiggly. Oh, darn it! I broke my thread. I was having too much fun. You want to see what it looks like since we have to cut it anyway? Darn, I was right at the end. That's so annoying. And let me tell you something else. If this is too messy, like you don't like it, I would just come back in and you could overlap it again with another one, and then you'll get sort of a ribbon effect and it'll look even better. There's my little circles, and there's where my thread broke right there. So we'll thread it up. One thing to note, that I cannot thread this up with my needle threader because I'm using a very small needle. So that'll be something important for you guys to know when you're working on your own projects. Those really tiny needles, you might have to thread by hand. Darn it. All right, guys, what do you think? I think we're probably good. I won't make you watch me rethread my needle. So I was concentrating really hard, so I really haven't seen any questions. So let's go ahead and see what our questions are. Hi, Rita. Hi, Linda Smith. Oh yes, my backing fabric. That is such a good thing to keep track of, right? You always want to check that. Yep, no, I was being careful. But I have done that, but then you just rip it out, and hate when that happens. Good to know how to start again. Yeah, I would just pull my thread up, I would just tack it off, and I'm just gonna start again. Exactly. Hi, Denise. Hi, Janet. Hi, Edwina. Lots of people. Any quick questions before I say goodbye? So I will go ahead and I'll post the finished project, but it's looking pretty good. Let's actually take it and put it on the floor real quick, just to show you how much of a difference that texture can make. So I'm gonna lift this up and I'm gonna put the light on it too, because the light matters. The light really makes sure that you get the shadow. So let me adjust a few things here. You can see I have a very busy workroom. It's a pain. Right there, can you see that textural difference? I'll kind of hold it at an angle right there. So there's all the texturing that we did, right? Can you see? When you shadow it, you can really see the difference in how it looks right there. So that's the little oval circles and circles with the coins. And that's the coin right there. And then our little straight edge on the edge, right? And with our little mix of circles and whatnot in there. And then let's go to the other side real quick. So this was the meander on this side, right there. We need to get some shadow on it so you can see it a little better. It's hard to see it without any shadow, without any shading. Right there. There you go. See? So there's where we put in the meander right there for the most part. Most of that area was so tiny that we just did that. Oh, it says don't rotate my phone. Okay, there you go. But I'll lay it out real quick. I know that's kind of dizzifying, right? So there's where we're at so far. Okay, and I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna finish up those pieces, but we're not gonna do those on camera just because those are areas that we've already done those same designs. But when I'm finished, I'll go ahead and bind it and I'll put the whole thing up so that everybody can see it, all of it. And you know, there's all my boo-boos are in there, whatever, I don't care. I'm not ripping anything out. That's the truth. Sometimes I do rip things out, but I think it looks good, and I think there's so much quilting that, you know, nobody will really be able to tell. So it's really not worth it. It's not like it's going to create a tremendous amount of value change if I rip this area out or that area out. You know, there are some things I would do different, but overall, when I look at that on the wall, I just feel happy inside. It makes me smile. And I hope you guys had a great time and you learned some things and felt like there was some value here for you. We're going to develop some new project that we're going to start working on. I don't have all the details yet, but I'll keep you guys informed and let you know. Anyway, have a wonderful, happy quilting day. Enjoy and keep practicing, keep trying new things. Have a good time. Bye.